What a wonderful machine. Classic Apple from the 90s. If only it worked. This iMac G3 is dead. It doesn't want to power up, and well, it doesn't want to power up. It doesn't do anything. It was already kind of broken in the first place, and now it's completely broken. So I can't do anything with this, and I think the best way to describe this is to play that one Gordon Freeman clip where he explodes.
Who the hell is Steve Jobs?
Ligma balls.
And you can tell that this hasn't been powered up in quite a while because it's just a little bit dusty. I guess on the bright side, I have the entire Apple logo here. Okay, that's not really that exciting. I'm just trying to make this seem not as bad as it is, but it's pretty bad. Okay, so I got some documentation. It might help us out. So we have to plug it in, of course. And then hook up the keyboard and the mouse and oh wow. Really? How did I not think about that? That button right there, you're telling me to press it and it powers up? No way. I can't believe it. Can't believe I didn't think about that. Well, video's over, I guess. Of course I knew about step number 6. I mean, pressing the power button is probably one of the best steps in this entire thing. But then again, step number 5, connecting it up to your phone line, that's also pretty cool as well. So it's pretty tough to choose, but then again, they're all pretty good. Very informative. I don't know how I could have lived without this. Thank you, Apple. You have saved the day yet again. Obviously, if it was actually the year 2001, like this documentation says so, then this would have been 100% accurate because the machine would have been brand new and this would have come alongside it. But unfortunately, it's not the year 2000 anymore, or 2001 in terms of the papers here. And well, this is considered obsolete and it doesn't work. They don't make CRTs like they used to, and well, if at all, and unfortunately time hasn't been kind to the components inside, at least in terms of what's going on to make it not power on. I'm gonna guess it's probably capacitors or something to do with the actual CRT analog board. I don't really know, and we'd have to open it up to really investigate. In terms of the documentation here, I only brought it out because, well, I wanted to show how cool it looks and the fact that I even have Apple Care documentation here with important Apple software proof of purchase coupons, and I think the best part of this is definitely either reading the software license agreement for macOS or reading the 1-year limited warranty here. Very exciting documentation. Can't wait to read this. Very helpful. I'm glad to have Apple Care protection plans so that way I get a guaranteed 1 year of support if it was 2000 and it did not expire 20 years ago. Okay, so we've established that the iMac doesn't work, but what exactly happened? Back in 2021, I wanted to finally get this Mac up and running because until then, it was basically just sitting kind of as it is right now. Everything worked on the machine except for the internal hard drive, and the way I actually got around it is by using an external FireWire drive and installing macOS Tiger onto it. If you haven't seen the video, I'll have it linked up here in the corner. That's basically what happened. We got the iMac to function and it was in macOS. It was doing Macintosh things. With the iMac G3 finally operational, I wanted to try out a whole bunch of different things with this, including iTunes, playing games, accessing the web, and it actually worked really well. This is a relatively high-end model with a 500 MHz G3 processor. The RAM was also upgraded in this machine, and it also has an airport card. So this is a really cool machine to have if it was actually functional. One of the main things that I really wanted to use this iMac for was iTunes. A classic early 2000s Macintosh seems like a perfect candidate for iTunes. It handles music really well. With that 500 MHz G3 processor, it was handling iTunes like it was nothing, playing back MP3s, and even though the speakers on this aren't exactly in the best shape, you can always hook this up to a separate sound system. It's got a built-in CD drive right there. You can sync this up with older iPods, and in general, it was just a really fun iMac to use. However, after using it for a while, one day I went to power it up and nothing. It never powered up again. So it's been sitting for, I don't even know how long at this point. I haven't powered it up since then because, well, it doesn't power up. And the only thing that has lasted longer than this is the actual iTunes library itself because it was on that external hard drive. And that's basically what has happened with this iMac. I did not plan for it to fail. I mean, obviously, no one really wants their old computers to not work anymore, but that's exactly why it hasn't been on the channel. It just doesn't work and I can't do anything with it, nor do I have the proper tools to actually repair this. So even though it doesn't work, I figured it's still worth doing an update video on it because, well, at least now we know what happened to it and the current state that it's in. But I also recently got an idea to see if this actually does still work even if the CRT itself doesn't power on. The last time I tried to power it up, it did not make a chime, nothing really indicated signs of life. However, this has a VGA port on the back which lets you hook up an external display. And I recently got to thinking that if an external monitor is set up, would it override the actual CRT circuitry and power up the display itself even if something is wrong? I have no idea if this is going to work or not, but I figured it would be an interesting experiment to try out and see what actually happens. If it doesn't power up at all even with the display, then it's most certainly a power supply issue, whether it be capacitors or something with the CRT analog board or just in general something with that power circuitry, but I figured it would still be an interesting thing to try out. So placing the iMac face down on a soft cloth to help the CRT, this is what we want to get access to. That is where the VGA port is, and underneath here is where you will get access to the RAM, the airport card, and the PRAM battery. Now, because I don't really have any other machines to utilize the parts in this as it is right now, I'm going to leave them in here for safekeeping, and I have removed the PRAM battery as well. But what we're going to do is we're going to carefully detach the cover here for the VGA port. And just like that, we can easily try and plug in an external monitor. And by the way, this is what the inside of the RAM battery cover door looks like. So that is the airport card inside here. This is an earlier revision of the airport card. And we've also got the RAM inside, and you can just barely see it, but that is where the battery holder for the PRAM battery goes. And as you can hopefully see, it is empty, so we won't have to worry about a battery completely destroying this machine. So over here we've got just a standard Dell display. So we just have to line up the cable, and I will actually tighten it down because we're going to be moving the iMac. And again, I really have no idea if this is going to do anything. This is more of an experiment and something extra to include into this video, because otherwise we'd just be looking at early 2000s plastic blob here that doesn't work. The display is on. This is the cable for the iMac, and here goes nothing. I guess that's basically everything there is to see about the iMac in its current condition. An external display does absolutely nothing, and while it does sound like it is starting to power up with the high voltage actually kicking in, it immediately turns off after a second or so and does absolutely nothing after that. It could be a problem with bad capacitors, it could be analog board specific problem, it could be a power supply issue. So I'm not exactly sure what the problem is here, and even if I did know, I don't exactly have the hardware or the components to fix something like this. At the very least, this iMac is in safe hands. There is absolutely no way I'm going to toss something like this out because it's a classic CRT based iMac, and stuff like this is only going to get harder to find because it's considered obsolete and old technology that just takes up space. So even though it's going to sit in a non-functional state for quite a while, it's not going anywhere. Once I eventually get everything that I need to attempt to repair this, this will hopefully be up and running once again someday. I have no idea when that's going to happen, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. By the way, if you have any ideas or theories as to what may have happened to this iMac, or if you've had an iMac that has encountered a similar problem in the past, I'd love to hear your comments as to what may have happened. So if you've got some, then go ahead and leave them down below. But if you've enjoyed today's video, then consider leaving a thumbs up because it'll help out the video and the channel in general. And if you want to see more Apple related shenanigans, then also consider subscribing because we've got a lot of content coming up and hopefully it'll actually be functional. But that's going to be all for now, and as always, Thank you very much for watching.